sweet up a minute. I think that I'm feeling sick from all this automatic.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Allie if you're new, and today is going to be a rather long book chit chat, so you may want to grab something to drink or a snack and chill out with me while I recap my books and reading and year of 2023.
Traffic, watch me crash my fucking car into your couch. Don't wanna finish up this episode before you cut me out.
So I'm going to be sharing some stats with you. I've went through and done a lot of charts and different things like that. I am feeling a little under the weather today, so I apologize if this ends up being all over the place. I hope it's not, because I've come very prepared and have everything ready for me, but never know. So first, I am going to share with you guys my Goodreads wrap up. My year in books for 2023. I read 133 books, 42,139 pages is what Goodreads says. My shortest book was Best of Luck by Jason Mott. This was a part of the Creature feature from Amazon Kindle Unlimited. And my longest book was my last book of the year, It by Stephen King. Best of Luck had 29 pages and Stephen King's It had 1,168 pages. My average book length for 2023 was 316 pages, which isn't bad. I feel like I read a lot of really long books this year, so I'm still kind of like... My most shelved book is Twilight. I've been doing a Twilight reread, so don't judge me there. It's been shelved by over 8 million people. And then my least is this really cool graphic novel for The Fall of the House of Usher. It's this really cool graphic novel of The Fall of the House of Usher. So if you've been really enjoying the new show, or maybe you love the book in general, story in general, I think you would really like this graphic novel as well, so you should check it out. My average rating is a 4.1. I gave really good ratings this year, apparently. The highest rated on Goodreads that I read was Fourth Wing. My first review of the year was The Love Hypothesis. You can kind of see a quick little overlay of my books and everything that I read this year, and the ones that are a little bit bigger are some of my 5 stars. And my last review of the year was rereading The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, apparently, although that wasn't my last book. But I completed my Goodreads challenge. Reading challenge was 100 books, and I read 133, so 133%. I am pretty proud of myself there. Now jumping into Storygraph, I have more like actual charts for you. So first of all, the moods for my 2023 reading. The top 4 is dark, mysterious, tense, and emotional. If that does not describe my year better. I read 88 dark books, 71 mysterious books, 55 tense books, 38 emotional books. And then we start getting into some of the other ones. I do love that my next one is adventurous. The Sagittarius in me is coming out with 36 books. 22 books that are funny. Lighthearted at 16 books. Reflective, I have a 12. And then even smaller than that, I have hopeful, sad, and challenging. So 6 hopeful, 4 sad, which that's not bad. I feel like I've strayed away from a lot of sad things. I like horror-heavy topics and that type of ordeal, but I have to say this year I wasn't really in the mood to cry a whole lot with books. It was kind of like my escape from reality, which I do know last year doing this video, I said I wanted to try to stop escaping reality with books. Still doing it. And then this last little sliver is so hard to even tap. I want to say it's like 4 challenging as well, which is interesting. The pace Sidebar, if you guys keep seeing me like step down and like do something, I have my laptop with notes right in front of me, so I'm just kind of going to like my next little sidebar. It's actually the things that you guys are seeing, so it's kind of cool. We're both seeing them. But my pace, I thought it was kind of strange because I was like, if this is going off of my pace, like as like, okay, you read this book in a day or you read this in 5 days, but actually I think it's just the pace of like what people say these books are. Like, are they in slow pace? Are they a medium pace? Are they a fast pace? And that makes more sense because I'm like, I'm not very good at logging my books in, so usually I'm logging them in whenever I get the chance to. But I only read 6% that was slow pace, 34% that were fast pace, and 60% were medium. So I feel like that's pretty good. Page number, very, very close, but coming in at 48%, I read books around 300 to 499. See, like I thought, more middle, not too short of books, but a pretty decent amount. I've been reading a lot of Stephen King this year, so I feel like there was going to be a spike in my pages for sure. And then next is less than 300 at 45%, and then at 500 plus 8%, which is really cool. I've read some really long books this year, so I'm glad that it's at least showing up a little bit there. And this one's pretty sad, but coming in at 99% is fiction and 1% nonfiction. I read like no nonfiction this year. I tried to at the beginning of my year. I think I actually read a nonfiction memoir in January or February, and I just haven't since. I actually have. I take that back. We'll talk about it in a minute. I have read some nonfiction true crime books and stuff like that, but I didn't finish any. I just kind of read parts of books. My most read authors, this one's a fun one. Obviously, Stephen King. Like I said, I've been reading a lot of his. I read over 10 of his books this year, so that's pretty cool. I would like to up that a little bit for next year. Ali Hazelwood, I read at least 5. Paul Tremblay, I read at least 5. Stephanie Meyer. I never thought Stephanie Meyer's name would be on my book wrap-up in 2023, but here we are. Like I said, I've been rereading the Twilight books, so that is why that's there. Lower of just repeated people, there is some authors here who are from my manga series. Shauna McGuire, I've been reading the Wayward Kids series. Emily Henry, I read a few of hers this year. Elle Cosmano with the Finlay Donovan series. Alice Hoffman, I've been really enjoying her work, so makes sense. Now, if you have Storygraph, you know that there is more to talk about, and I am going to. Mainly genres. So we're going to come back to genres in a minute, but we're going to jump into my book clubs because they really were coming through this year. I literally explained it to James, my husband, the other night while I was like compiling all my notes for this video. I was like, 2023 was really my book club tasting moment. Like, I was figuring out what book clubs were really going to work for me. I tried so many, and I won't leave you guys hanging there because I do plan on doing a book club video this month on the book clubs I'm continuing for this year. So they're the ones that like I really enjoyed this last year, the picks for them, the live shows, kind of a combination of all the things, and I continue to enjoy them, and so I will be continuing them into 2024. So I am going to be sharing with you guys which ones in an upcoming video, so stay tuned for that. But we're going to look back at my book clubs because, like I said, I joined so many last year. It was kind of ridiculous, and to a point to where there was no way I was going to be able to complete all of them, and unfortunately I didn't. But I feel like I made really good progress with most of these, and the ones that I didn't get to, I have plans for. So up first is the Literally Dead book club by Kayla from Books and Lala. I completed all of hers but 3. We read Finlay Donovan Jumps a Gun, we read The Spite House, The Riding Retreat, Whisper Down the Lane, The Only One Left, Monstrulio, Midnight is the Darkest Hour. There was a lot of really popular ones going on here, and there is a few that are more mystery thriller that I did not get to. You guys can kind of see with the graphs and all of these, the ones that are a lot more opaque are the ones that I did read. The ones that look a little bit more like shadowed out are the ones I didn't get to. So for instance, I didn't get to, what is that, A Twisted Love Story, The Family Game, and The Devotion of Subject X, I think is what that one was called. So yeah, I didn't get to those 3. Like I said, I'm not going to be too wordy here with the book clubs besides just showing you guys my progress from last year. I will be going more in depth about these book clubs, or at least the ones that I'm continuing in the new year. In that book club video. But I did want to throw this up really quick, my buzzword challenge of 2023, because I will be doing it for 2024 as well. This is also by Kayla from Books and Lala, so that's why I wanted to insert it here. And I didn't do bad. I did all of them, all the prompts, just like it sounds, the buzzword, she will give a word for each month, and you find a book that kind of goes with that word or theme, and I did it for each month besides 2. I do have 2 books planned out for that, so yeah, I still plan on getting to those. Also forgot to mention at any time in this video, there's going to be a lot of information up on your screen, so if you need a pause for a minute just so that you can see everything really well, or if you're intrigued by something and want to take a better look at it, just hit pause and then jump back right into it, because I don't want this video to be like too long. And I know that if I sat here for too long breaking down each one of these just so that you guys can have a good look at the screen, we would be here forever. But like I said, you guys will kind of have a little bit of a deja vu moment in my book club video when showing these again. The next one is the Book Troop, hosted by Gabby from Gabby Reads, and this one, I wish I could have done a little bit better, but nonetheless, I did get to quite a few of them. I read Wonderland by Jennifer Hillier, Nana by Brandon Massey, Grady Hendrix, How to Sell a Haunted House, I'm trying to remember all the titles, What Lies in the Woods by Alice, or Kate Alice Marshall, I believe. Again, The Only One Left by Riley Sager, Midnight is the Darkest Hour by Ashley Winstead again, but you can see that there's quite a few that I did not get to from the Book Troop. Then we have the Midnight Society Book Club. This is hosted by Elizabeth from Reading Wirely, and I completed Mother Thing, The Drift, The Haunting of Alejandra, Camp Damascus, Rouge, The Protege, but there is quite a few there that I also did not get to. The Lights Out Book Club, hosted by Sav from Riveting Reads. I joined this one very late. I would say probably around June, July. And so I tried to read a bunch of these picks back to back to back. And I really was enjoying the picks for sure, but didn't get to as many as I would like to. But again, What Lies in the Woods, Pinata, The Chateau, Such Pretty Flowers, A House with Good Bones, The Drowning Woman, The September House. Yeah, some more really good ones that I definitely want to get to from this book club that I didn't get to yet. Some of them have been on my TBR. The Dark Hearts Book Club, hosted by Amy Noel. There was 2 books in January which I found really interesting, and I started the Isolation anthology but had to stop because I was in the middle of summer and it is such a snowy isolation type read that I was like, I need to read this in the winter. And now I'm thinking about that and I'm like, I need to make sure I keep that one aside so that I can read it for the winter time. But I got to a few of hers. I really enjoyed the different variety and picks for this book club for sure. Because of this book club, I read Monstrilio and The Curse of the Reaper. So that's a little hint as is what to come when I get to ranking. Like I said, I read a lot of Stephen King this year, and part of that was because of the We Read King book club hosted by Beth and Ashley. I believe handles might have changed lately, but you can find the book club on Instagram and Discord, We Read King. We read the Mr. Mercedes trilogy for March and April. We continued Holly Gibney's story with The Outsider in June, and with the short story If It Bleeds in August. That one is blurred out because I did not finish the other stories in that book. At the time, I was really busy, so I only was able to fit in the If It Bleeds story, but I will be going back and reading the other ones. And Holly, his newest book this year, I was able to read as well. But also in May, we read Rose Matter. July was it, and I did not get to it in the summertime, but I did just complete it in December. And then Salem's Lot was a previous read of mine, so I just went ahead and marked it off the list. As you can kind of see with my book clubs, I don't really stick to them on a month-to-month basis as much as I would like to. But if I don't, I do try to still fit them into my year where I can with certain books. If they fit into like my schedule or what I'm currently wanting to read, what I'm wanting to film about, and that type of order. Now, one book club that I am not mentioning that I did participate in was the True Crime book club hosted by Ashley, Bookish Mommy on Instagram. She does a nonfiction true crime read, and since I have a true crime podcast, so I really like to learn more about the kind of things, whether it's on a book about a certain case, whether it's a book from a detective's point of view of his life and all the cases he has solved. She features a lot of books like that. Now, I got to at least 5 of them and just read parts of them. I don't really think it was my year of nonfiction, but I have been wanting to pick them back up. So maybe I'll get to it this year. But she also hosts the horror summer camp in the summertime for June, July, and August. And I did read this last year's 3 picks, The Ruins, The Saturday Night Ghost Club, and Seed. And I did enjoy all of them. My favorites in order of these was The Saturday Night Ghost Club, Seed, and then The Ruins, if you were interested. She's also started the Shirley Jackson book club, and it's kind of like, you can kind of think of it as like a quarterly read. I see that she changed the dates, so it was just a book each quarter, but now she has it to where you read a book for 2 months. So still kind of the same idea, the same kind of situation going on, but it was kind of the same situation going on. Like, I thought it was going to be more quarterly, but we did have one, I believe in June or July, and then we had one in October, December, February, so they were kind of closer to each other. So yeah, every 2 months you work on a Shirley Jackson book. So yeah, we read The Lottery. I also had recently read The Haunting of Hill House, and I know they read it in October. And then I haven't got to, what is it called? The Road Through the Wall. That was December's pick. I haven't got to that one yet. And then there's The Lottery and other stories that we're currently supposed to be reading. The last book club is quarterly, and that is In the Void. This is hosted by Sarah Voided Lux on Instagram. You can also find In the Void Book Club on Instagram. She does a quarterly book club picks of strange random horror is what I want to describe it as. Quarter 1 was How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. Quarter 2 was Jawbone by Monica, is it Ojetti? I'm probably so off on that. Quarter 3 was Mary by Nat Cassidy, and quarter 4 was Hell House by, I couldn't tell you. I want to say it's Richard Matheson. But I read the first 3 quarters. I have not got to quarter 4 yet. I did fall behind on this, but I am currently reading some like haunted house books, so it's up there on the list. But yeah, if you guys want to know more about my book clubs, or if you like hearing more about book clubs or wondering which book club to join, stay tuned for my book club video, because I'm going to go into more details about that, and it'll just be a video just about the book clubs, about who has the book clubs, or who does the book clubs, what type of books they read, and all of that. Stay tuned for that video. I'm hoping to have it up this month. I do have a couple of series or read-alongs that I'm doing currently as well that I started last year and I hope to continue throughout this year. The first one being A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. She did a YouTube read-along and they're so much fun. You read the books and you can kind of watch the parts on her channel and kind of go along with her while she explains her thinking process, her writing process, and really goes into detail about the certain scenes and characters. It's such a good time. I only made it through A Darker Shade of Magic and I freaking loved it, so I have to get back to that one. Also, because of the We Read King book club, it had me spiraling down a rabbit hole of the Dark Tower series. The expanded Dark Tower series, to be precise, and because of that, I am now working on a 20+ book Dark Tower expanded series. And I did make these graphics because I wanted something to help keep me like more accountable and, you know, really get me going with my journey on this, because this is really what I'm wanting to focus on as far as Stephen King goes this year, and hopefully complete the series this year. That would be really cool. Okay, now we're going back to Storygraph because we're going to talk about genres. I'm so proud of myself. Last year as in 2022, I read all over the place. It was like I was just trying to navigate every single reading genre, and it was a lot. But I was really shocked at my end of the year wrap up with like my stats and what I'd read the most of, where this year was a good reading year, and you can definitely tell my stats that my favorites are at the top, and I read most I read were my favorites, and the top one is horror, coming in at 63 books. I read so many horror books this year, and I absolutely loved them. Now I'm going to throw up my books that I read that are, as far as Storygraph goes, these all have horror elements to them. There may be some where you're thinking, oh, I feel like that's more just fiction, or I feel like that's more literary fiction, or blah, 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 blah. All of these have at least some type of horror element to them, but you might see them repeated in other genres as well because of the other aspects that they have. I had an amazing year with horror though, and so many new authors and past authors that I loved. I loved being able to just read from authors that I'm already like really falling for their work, but also try out some new ones as well. And I hope to continue that this year. My next one is thriller at 36 books. I was actually shocked by this one. This is usually my second favorite genre, but I was shocked because I feel like 2023 really was not it for me with thriller and mysteries. I do have these compiled together, but what I will say is the first page of thrillers that you are seeing are more of the actual thriller. They have more of that edge of your seat thriller moment going on within the books. Next page is more so the books that maybe have a little bit of a thriller vibe, but definitely a mystery within the story. I kind of like to combine the two, so that's why they're together. Again, at any point you guys can pause because we are going to be moving on. Next up, so shocked, but we have fantasy at 34. I really fell for fantasy this year. I started so many series. I started The Wayward Kids by Seanan McGuire. I started the Alex Stern series by Leigh Bardugo with Ninth House and Hellbent. I started, Fourth Wing, V.E. Schwab, the Dark Tower series. There's a lot going on, but I started so many this year, and I've been having such a good time with fantasy. Next up, we do have romance at 28. I did not read as much romance this year. Honestly, still think 28 is a big number. But if you really look at these 28 books, you can kind of see I had a little bit of a romance era going on around February. And then from there, it kind of dwindled. And you can kind of see like my romance turned into maybe a couple new ones, like Happy Place by Emily Henry. But then it's like Twilight and fantasy, ACOTAR and Divine Rivals and Fourth Wing. And so I don't plan on going through every single little genre type, but this is a feat for me because I do not read a lot of YA, so I am just now realizing that my math is not adding up because I am going off the math on my Storygraph, but I actually had 64 horror and I believe 45 thriller mystery because I combined those two together. It was 30 on fantasy, 29 on romance, and 12 on young adult. I knew I was going to be all over the place. But yeah, I was really proud of myself for how much young adult I did read, although I still am moving away from it. It hasn't really been something that I really enjoy. I feel like there was meaning behind why I was reading these certain ones, although I will say I loved The Near Witch by V.E. Schwab. I loved Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. And there was some other really good ones as well. I was very pleasantly surprised by the YA books I did read. The next one is novella short stories. So I read The Beast You Are by Paul Tremblay, a book full of witches, and then Life Ceremony. Those three books are anthologies, so they're a bigger book that's filled with a bunch of short stories. And then I have some of my novellas. I know that there's more, but these are the ones that popped up on Goodreads, or Storygraph, so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna have to go with these because I can't be bothered to go through and see how many books are like less than 300 pages, if I'm being honest. But we do have the Creature feature from Amazon Kindle Unlimited. They were short story horror books. Absolutely love them. Definitely check them out if you have Kindle Unlimited. And then also The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. Quite a few literary as well, and all of these, I stand by this. There's 9 of them. They all, for the most part, I want to say all of these are more horror or disturbing type of reads. Not Mame, but the other ones are definitely more disturbing, have darker elements to them at least. I think I would consider The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue still kind of dark elements while not being like, it's not like a full-on like horror moment, but there is still some darker elements to it. Loved like all of these. They all really worked out for me. I just still have to kind of be in the mood for certain literary books, but they're growing on me more and more. They're so beautiful. I do like the ones that are more horror or dark themed though, as you can tell. Manga, I didn't really get to as much as I would have loved to this year, but I did pick up some. I did read some, but yeah, I really wanted to continue these series and I didn't. Historical fiction, some really good ones here as well. We have 7. Yeah, I really like all of those and those authors. Then I had 3 classics, The Lottery, Little Women, and Jaws. 3 sci-fi moments, which that is a bummer with what's to come in a minute. But I read Firestarter by Stephen King, Dead Silence by S.A. Barnes, I believe, and then The Gunslinger by Stephen King. So Stephen King really pulled through for the sci-fi for me. Crime, Stephen King also pulled through for me with the Bill Hodges trilogy and then going on into the Holly Gibney. I believe there was more crime books I read, though, that are not mentioned here. Middle grade, I've been working on the series of Unfortunate Events with my son, so I do have a couple middle grade ones. We made it through 2 of those this past year, and I was also put on the erotica list thanks to Katie Robert. The beginning of this year, I was starting that series, and as you can see, I never picked it back up. That leaves us with memoir. I read 1 the beginning of this year, and it was a gut-wrenching one. And then graphic novels, I just read the 1 as well. I didn't know if I was going to include this or not, time-wise, but these are the series I would like to continue this year. I have the Practical Magic series by Alice Hoffman, and once again, you guys can see the ones that are opaque are the ones I've read, and the ones that are kind of like blurred a little bit are the ones I haven't got to or what I need to read to finish. The next one, though, is the Alex Cross series by James Patterson, and as you guys can see, I listed 5. I've only read 1 of them. I listed 5, but it's a 32 series. I would even say 32 plus because I believe he's still writing them. But I do like to read those because my mom all reads them, so I kind of like to read them to be able to like talk to her about them, and I want to get back into that. The Hunger Games I started and never completed it. I don't know if I'm gonna read the Songbird, the newest one. I don't know. I don't know how the vibe is gonna be for it, and I've heard very mixed things, so let me know. But I do want to read Mockingjay to complete the trilogy at least. I do want to get back into my Karen Slaughter. I want to finish out Grant County series so that I can get into the Will Trent series. And catch up with like some of her newer books. We are going to be continuing the series of Unfortunate Events as well. I also want to continue V.E. Schwab's Vicious series because she's currently writing the third one, so I'm like, I gotta catch up. I loved that first book so much. I, as of now, want to continue the Fourth Wing series as well. I'm just hoping it goes in a direction I like. But I am realizing that I don't know if her next one is even going to be out this year. But nonetheless, I wanted to list it as well. My friends have convinced me to finally read ACOTAR, so I am doing that as well. And as of now filming this video, I've only read the first one. I'm also reading the duology of Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows, and I'm loving it so far. I'm going to be reading Ruthless Vows hopefully this month. I love Stephen Graham Jones. I don't know what this series is actually called, but the first one was My Heart is a Chainsaw. I loved how that wrapped up, and I really want to start the next one. And then he has the third and final one coming out this year. I do want to go ahead and continue my reread of Twilight. I just have Breaking Dawn left. And like I mentioned earlier, I will be continuing Stephen King's Dark Tower series. As well as Shauna McGuire's Wayward Kids. I really want to get through that one. I also have Ninth House and Hellbent on here, but again, I am not very hopeful that we're going to get the third book this year, and I'm devastated because I want to know what comes next. I also want to continue V.E. Schwab's Darker Shade of Magic, like I mentioned. Also, you guys can kind of see I have like numbers, plus signs, and a question mark because I don't know, like, is that where the series is going to end or not? So I tried looking up to make sure, like, to see if there's trilogies or duologies and stuff like that, but some of them just say like, it's going to be a longer series, but we don't really know how many parts. I do want to pick up King Fisher's new book after the What Moves the Dead, and I plan on continuing on the Finlay Donovan series as well, and she snuck in one on me. I did not know that we had I think like 3.5 book that's on Kindle. I had no idea, so I'm gonna have to pick that one up too. Now on to ratings. Like I mentioned before, I think it was like gave out a lot of 4s, I guess, this year, you guys. But I feel like it was overall a really good reading year for me, and I enjoyed my reading this year. So I thought, what would be a better way than to end out this video with going through my ratings, starting with my 2 stars, because I actually didn't give out any 1 stars this year, up into my 5-star, and then I will give you guys my top 10 picks for 2023, and maybe some of my goals for this new year with reading. Again, you might want to hit pause if you want to really look through the books, but I'm going to start with my 2-star ratings. I only had 2, both romance. These authors just didn't really do it for me. I did have some other romance books that are not listed on here that were just a straight DNF. So I did at least finish these 2, but they just didn't do it for me. I have not continued the series. I don't even think I've read from these authors again as well. Just wasn't my type of romance. Moving on to my 3 stars, there's quite a few here, but I do think I gave more 4 stars if I'm not mistaken. 3 stars are kind of just I liked it. It was a really good book. I don't think each of these are books that I would really like recommend. For instance, the very first one is Happy Place by Emily Henry, and it's probably my least favorite Emily Henry. So if I was going to recommend Emily Henry for you, it would be a different one. But I still liked it. I don't think it was a bad book. I enjoyed my time reading it. That kind of is the general idea for my 3 stars. Like I said, I gave a lot of 4 stars this year. There was a lot of really good books, and I feel like that's where I stand with 4 stars. These are books that I really, really love, could potentially reread. There's something missing from them to keep them from being a top favorite, but I'm still going to talk really highly about these books and authors. You'll probably see me pick up more books from these authors, and yeah, a lot of really great ones here. And my 5 stars, which are probably the same or very close to 4 stars that I gave out. I had a lot of 5 stars this year now that I'm looking at it. I guess I just wasn't as shocked when I was editing this all together as I am now actually looking at it and talking about it, but there's so many 5 stars and so many good ones here. My top 10 are in these books that we're gonna get to, and I'm just really happy with my year of reading. I do have a few here that I'm gonna throw up that you probably didn't, but you may have caught did not make the cut on any of my ratings. One is a memoir, and it's just really hard for me to rate someone's life story like that. So I think if you look on my Goodreads, I probably gave it like 5 stars or no rating at all, just because I wanted to kind of respect that. But the other ones are the Twilights, and since they're rereads for me, I haven't really rated them as much because I'm just like, I'm reading it for the vibes and for the nostalgia. Now on to my top 10. I'm so excited. This was actually so hard for me to rank these because I was like, I'm just gonna put my top 10 on there, but then I was like, I really want to rank them though. So coming in at number 10 is a YA, Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. I loved this one so much. It's such a good read, and if you're somebody like me who doesn't usually read YA because you're just like, oh, I don't really like the YA writing style or books in general, I'm telling you to give this one a shot, because I was just like, I read it and then I was like, oh my god, this was YA. Like, I think if I went to it knowing it was YA, I probably wouldn't have wanted to pick it up, but I'm so glad that I did, and I'm going to be reading Ruthless Vows this month, so next up, Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo, and like I said, I want to know what happens next. I am just crossing my fingers and just putting all of the manifestation out there that like we'll get news of something soon. Next up was book 2 of The Wayward Kids, Down Among the Sticks and Bones, I believe, or Bones and Sticks, something like that. I've really been enjoying this series, so I did want to represent it in my top 10. But I chose this one because this follows the twins, Jack and Jill, and I really enjoyed their story and where Shauna Maguire went with this one. Next up is a new to me author this year. I've read 2 of his books now, Brian McAuley, and this is The Curse of the Reaper. I loved this one so much. It's a modern day slasher, but I really enjoyed it, and I think if you're into the old slasher movies and franchises, you'll really like it as well. Next up was Rose Madder, and as you can see, I read a lot of Stephen King this year, and this one made the list for me. It was my favorite Stephen King read of this year. I really enjoyed it, and I know it's an unpopular opinion. A lot of people rank this one a lot lower, but I loved the story of Rosie and everything that went into the story. I liked the weird elements. I liked that it was like a realism that turned into fantasy, and I just loved everything about it. Next up was my favorite Paul Tremblay book, A Head Full of Ghosts. I loved this one as well. I love paranormal books and like possession and all of that anyways, so yeah, this one really did it for me. Had to have an Alice Hoffman, so she is up next with Magic Lessons. Really enjoyed this one from the Practical Magic series. A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. Like I said, I will be continuing the series this year because I really enjoyed the first part. My top 2, so the first one is The Saturday Night Ghost Club from Craig Davidson. This was just a random book I picked up to read because of the horror summer camp hosted by Spookish mommy Ashley, and I fell in love with this book. It is like my cozy read. I just absolutely adored it, and it has ghost stories in it, it has adventure in it, it has coming of age or growing up story, and I just loved every minute of it. And it was just like heartbreaking at the same time. But my top book I had to give to Monstrilio. I loved this book so much. I don't want to butcher the name, but I think it's Gradovo Samano Cordova. I probably butchered that. But my favorite book of the year, I loved this so much. You have a lot of body horror. You have just this heartbreaking story of this mother grieving who has lost her son and is feeding a part of his lung that turns into Monstrilio. It's a wild ride. I have not stopped thinking about this book. It's been on my mind 24/7. It has me in a chokehold. I love this book so, so much, and it's my top favorite of 2023. Oh my gosh, you guys, that wraps up my little look back and recap of my reading year for 2023. I'm losing daylight as we speak, but I wanted to mention my book goals for this year really quick because I had looked back at this video from last year and was like, what did I even say in that video? And towards a part of it, I think the end, I had mentioned, you know, just some vague goals, and I kind of wish I would have went into more detail and actually made some goals for myself so that in a year I can look back and be like, did I accomplish all of those? So there was 3. The first one was read more books in general, and I did that because last year I read, I think, 61 books, and this past year I read 133, so I definitely accomplished that one. But the other one was read more sci-fi, which did not pan out, as you guys seen. 2022 was a year where I stumbled into sci-fi and I was really, really enjoying it. And then it kind of, I guess, fizzled out by 2023. And I just haven't really been picking up any sci-fi. Maybe I will this year. I don't know. But I also had said read more fantasy, and I definitely accomplished that. I really went through a fantasy era. But I thought it would be cool to list some 2024 reading goals so that in a year I can look back at these and see if I accomplished them. And my first one is my reading goal in general, to read 150 books this year. No pressure, but I'm hoping to hit that mark. The next one is keep up with book clubs. I want to do a better job at it. I felt like last year I just kept falling behind and then I just could never catch up. Partially because I started a lot of these clubs middle of the year, but I would like to stay on top of things a little bit more this year. Complete the buzzword challenge. I definitely want to complete it. I'm hoping to, just like I wanted to last year, so maybe I will this year. Complete In the Void bingo, which I didn't really touch base on, but the In the Void quarterly book club also has a book bingo every quarter, and it's a bingo sheet that you can post in your stories on Instagram, and it has like different prompts that you try to fill, and it really helps me create my TBR quarterly, honestly. Continue the Dark Tower series, the expanded series. Complete the Darker Shade of Magic. So you can see how I put continue with the Dark Tower, because it would be nice if I finished it this year, but I'm not holding myself to it. And I do want to complete the Darker Shade of Magic series. Read along. Also, stay tuned because my next one is 24 and 24, because I want to complete my 24 and 24. It's going to be 24 books that are coming out in 2024 that I want to read this year, and I already have them all picked out, so stay tuned for that video. And also, my last thing that you guys might have noticed, maybe not because it's clear, is this little vase I have back here. This is going to be my TBR jar. I did get this idea from Kayla from Books and Lala. She does a TBR jar with like her YouTube members who post book recommendations for her, and she puts them in the jar and reads some, I think, each month. So for me, I'm going to take the idea and spin it a little bit. I am going to put in here all of my past book club picks books in general that like have just been on my TBR. My past buzzword ones that I didn't complete, I kind of was hinting at like, I'm gonna complete these, I'm gonna come back. It's because I'm gonna put them in my TBR jar. Past series that I'm wanting to get to, I'm gonna throw them in here. I may just end up reading them at some random time, and then once I pick them out of here, I'll just toss them, you know, because I'll be like, oh, I already read that. I'm going to put in my 24 and 24. I'm not going to put the actual names of those. I just printed 24 and 24 because these books are going to be coming out throughout the year. So I'm just going to have to pick one that's already been published and that's out. Also, I've been wanting to go back and read favorites from Goodreads. So like the best of horror, the best of thriller, the best of whatever. So I color coordinated all of them too. Pretty proud about this. So green, it's gonna be kind of hard to tell with like my lighting going, but like green is 24 and 24. So if I draw one of these, I have to go and see which of my 24 are available to buy, like which ones are already out, and know like that's the book I have to read then. If It Bleeds, Stephen King. This was a book club pick, so it's like this like black gray shade. There's also gray shade, which is just other TBR horror. And then I have blue for buzzwords, orange for series. I went ahead and put the true crime nonfiction as red, and then green 24 and 24, gray for Goodreads horror, blue, kind of like a periwinkle blue for Goodreads thriller mystery, light green for Goodreads sci-fi, and purple for Goodreads fantasy. And I'm going to compile them all in here, and my goal is to do more TBR videos that are maybe seasonally. And each season I need to pick like, I don't know, like 4 of them or maybe even more than that. And just throughout the year, whenever I'm in a rut and I'm like, okay, I just want to pick one, I'm just going to pick one. And hopefully I will complete it or make a good dent in it by the end of the year is my goal. But thank you guys so much for sticking around with me throughout this video. I'm hoping I can edit it down to be not as long as it has taken me to film this. I feel like I've been talking for days, but I really appreciate you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed all of the charts and the breakdowns and the ranking and stats, everything, and even my plans for the new year. I do have a couple more videos that will be rolling out this month. Like I mentioned, the book club video, the 24 and 24, and maybe another one. So stay tuned for that. A lot of this is more to come in other videos, so I apologize if you're overwhelmed. If there's anything you have questions about, let me know, but I am sure I will be answering some of those in upcoming videos as well. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. Let me know down below if you watched this such long video. What was your favorite read of 2023? I would love to know. And thank you guys so much for hanging out and watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in my next video.
You can never take me. I'm just living life. I guess a bottle wouldn't break me. Thinking about 1,000 reasons why you probably hate me.